Our guest today is the Chief Financial Officer of Cook County. She is responsible for the strategic direction and management of all financial matters relating to Cook County. She graduated summa cum laude from the University of Arkansas, Pine Bluff. Our guest today also earned her master's degree at the Kellogg School of Management. And if you read this morning's Washington Post, which Tom Langto was nice enough to send to me, front page, states are hit hard by economic downturn. This is the lead line. In Illinois' Cook County, women in poor neighborhoods no longer have access to free mammograms from 2 mobile vans testing for breast cancer. And it goes on and on and on to chronicle the challenges facing our guest speaker today. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the City Club of Chicago, the Chief Financial Officer of Cook County, Donna Dunnings. Donna?
I promise you this isn't all my speech, okay? Good afternoon. I'd like to begin by placing my glasses on. I'd like to begin by thanking the City Club for hosting this luncheon today. The service provided to our community by this organization cannot be overstated. The City Club provides the public and members of the business community in Chicago, Cook County, and beyond an opportunity to hear directly from elected officials and government officials, for better or worse. As I'm sure everyone here today knows, Cook County government faces many challenges. Indeed, governments across our region, our state, and the nation are facing similar challenges, and unfortunately, most of them come down to money or a lack of it. The irony of government finance, and some would say the tragedy of government finance, is that the more people rely upon government services, the less money government has to provide those services. The math is fairly simple. When the economy slows, tax revenues decline. When people earn less or do not earn at all, government receives less money from the taxes it collects. Cook County is no different. In fact, the pain of an economic slowdown is felt more sharply by a government such as ours. And this truth is no more evident than when you examine the Cook County hospital system. I have a question for the audience here today. I want everyone in the room who has health insurance to raise their hand. Okay, now I want those of you who have health insurance that is provided by your employer to raise your hand. You are lucky, as am I. But the reality is that there are thousands of families in the Chicagoland area who do not have insurance. Thousands who rely on Cook County. Notice that I said Chicagoland area and not just Cook County. The Cook County health system is the safety net for the entire region. We are all that is left. And as the economy declines and people lose their jobs and their insurance, they turn to Cook County to keep them and their families healthy. The cost of providing health care is exploding. And at this time, when people are hurting and local governments are struggling to keep their heads above water, what is the federal government's plan to help? They do not have one. Actually, I misspoke. Their plan is to cut Medicaid contributions to those states that provide public health to their constituencies. According to the Center for Tax and Budget Accountability, Cook County will lose more than $500 million in federal Medicaid funds over the next 5 years. $500 million. Think about that number. $500 million is more than 15% of Cook County's annual budget. $500 million is 56% of what we spend on our entire hospital system. At a time where more people need government-provided health care, the federal government is reducing the amount it is contributing to help pay for that. But it is just not the feds. More patients, less money, increased costs. All of these factors have contributed to the problem. Remember, I am only talking about the Cook County health system. Tax revenues are stagnant across the board. This is logical considering the state of the economy. Conversely, costs are rising in virtually every sector of county government: corrections, courts, other public safety agencies, elections, and health. We are and were facing what is known as a structural deficit. As our revenues sometimes fluctuate and most instances decline, our expenses will continue to increase at a rate equal to or much higher than inflation. Health costs up, the cost of operating county jail up, the court system up, pension obligations up, employee benefits, energy costs, infrastructure repairs and maintenance, up, up, and up. As the Center for Tax and Budget Accountability pointed out in their review of county finances, even if our revenues increased at a modest rate, the skyrocketing costs of operating government, coupled with a reduction in federal assistance, would leave Cook County in an untenable situation. When the time came for President Stroger to introduce his fiscal year 2008 budget, the reality we're facing was that unless we increased our revenues or severely reduced the services we provide, the county was on a ruinous path toward fiscal collapse. The recently passed sales tax was not something President Stroger wanted to propose. In fact, during his first budget for fiscal year 2007, the president held the line on revenue enhancements and implemented unprecedented cuts in the budget. But as fiscal year 2008 approached, it became clear that the structural deficit we were facing could not be overcome through cuts alone. The cost of operating Cook County government is projected to increase by over 5% annually over the next 5 years. The cost of maintaining our Cook County healthcare system alone is projected to increase by more than 7.5% on an annual basis. Many of the president's critics on the county board and in the press refuse to acknowledge the reality of the situation. Patronage and waste, they say, is the cause of the county's problems. Their solution: fire thousands of employees, sell the county's assets, and privatize its services. Then what? Reasonable people can disagree, but this so-called solution to our financial situation would have enhanced our problems rather than solved them. We would have irresponsibly abandoned our purpose. We would have turned our backs on the people of this region who depend on our services for survival. And what if we were able to get through this year with massive cuts and firings? What about the next year, when the cost of operating the hospital system alone is expected to increase by $61.6 million? And what about the year after that, and the next year, and so on? To stand in front of the press and claim that patronage is the sole reason for the originally published $239 million deficit we faced in fiscal year 2008 is not only inaccurate, but is also irresponsible. This type of claim merely reflects political frustration, not fiscal reality. To use the fact that I am the president's cousin as a distraction from the true problems the county is facing is the type of tactic George Bush and Karl Rove would admire. Confuse the facts, scare the public, tap into their angers and their fears, all in an effort to distract them from the real problems we face and to avoid going out on a limb to propose a real solution. It is a lot easier to blame patronage and nepotism than to actually come up with a reasonable and balanced plan to address the problem. But I'm not going to stand here today and claim that we cannot make Cook County government more efficient. We can, we have, and we will continue to do so. Since President Todd Stroger took office, we have undertaken numerous efficiency initiatives, such as e-procurement. E-procurement was developed to expedite the procurement process, whereby a county website was designed to allow vendors to obtain bid and requests for proposal information. This site allows vendors to communicate with the Office of the Purchasing Agent electronically. Performance-based budgeting. Performance-based budgeting is where departments are evaluated on how efficiently and effectively they perform their tasks. Departments are expected to be customer-oriented while also conscious of cost and their bottom line. Technology initiatives. The technology team has also been aggressively working with finance to develop more integrated systems that over time will reduce costs associated with personnel and non-personnel related expenditures. An integrated audit approach. An integrated audit approach was developed with the selection of one principal auditor for all audit components. This ensures a streamlined audit approach which allows for more efficiency where less duplication of effort by county personnel from different areas will exist. However, no matter how hard we tried to save, our structural deficit would have caught up to us. The cost of running government, and can I borrow that water? See, even the president's cousin deserves basic needs such as water. The cost of running government, especially in the areas of health care and criminal justice, will continue to go up, regardless of what extreme measures we take to control costs. We cannot merely wish the problems we face away. I want to reiterate that. We cannot merely wish the problems we face away. The recently passed fiscal year 2008 budget and the accompanying sales tax increase will allow us to actually approach the future strategically, to weather the ups and the downs of the national economy, to protect our bond rating, and most importantly, to provide the basic life services to those among us who need it. When the president nominated me to be chief financial officer, he set out for me and his entire fiscal team certain goals that he wanted his administration to accomplish during his first term. Emphasis, during his first term. First, he told me that he wanted to cut the cost of operating county government. As I mentioned above, we have taken unprecedented steps to make the government run more efficiently. Second, he wanted to make sure that Cook County taxpayers would never have to face a financial crisis like we have during the last 2 years. President Stroger has charged those of us on his finance team to take the steps necessary to protect the taxpayers from future economic downturns. We have taken this directive as our mission and have now begun to redefine county finance. We have established a Revenue Strategy Committee. On this committee sit the President's finance team, the finance team of all the county's separately elected officials, as well as various outside economic organizations such as the Civic Federation and the Chicagoland Chamber of Commerce. It is President Stroger's hope that this internal and external financial coalition will provide him with various revenue strategies in light of our structural deficit. Along that train of thought, an expenditure review committee made up of internal and external groups is being set up as we speak. All cost savings will be vetted out during this process. Also, it is the finances team's hope that we will further decrease the amount of time it currently takes to present the county's audited financial report to the Board of Commissioners. Realizing that keeping abreast of current changing financial standards is important, the President has instructed the finance team to begin county-wide training sessions on various fiscal matters such as internal controls, CAFRA preparation, and fixed asset accounting for all affected Cook County finance team. This will be a first in Cook County history. Despite what you may have read in the newspapers or seen on the local news, we are working hard every day to find new ways to make Cook County government better. The task we face is a very difficult one, but by no means is it impossible. As we now move beyond the budget negotiations of fiscal year 2008, we can now look to the future and find new ways for Cook County to provide its critical services in a cost-effective way. I look forward to the Board of Commissioners, separately elected official, and external economic groups' help in achieving this mission. Finally, I would be remiss in not thanking President Stroger, the Cook County Board of Commissioners, and all of the county's separately elected officials for all the support given me during my first year as the county's chief financial officer. Also, it should be noted that this has been a team effort. Present with us today are members of my finance team, and I would appreciate if you stand as I recognize you. The county's budget director, Jerice Wilson. The county's revenue director, Barbara Bruno. The county's purchasing agent, Carmen Trish Colvin. Our contract compliance administrator, Betty Hancock Perry. The county's risk manager, Lisa Wallet. Don't steal my comments. And currently, the only male member, Commissioner Silvestri, but a stabilizing force for all that estrogen, the county's controller, Joseph M. Fratto. Thanks also to my family that watches over me daily. My grandmother, Ella, my mother, Cleopatra, and my uncles, John and Jimmy. Thank you for instilling in me integrity, service, and pride. And to my two daughters, who are truly the wind beneath my wings, Martia and Megan. I would also like to recognize people in the audience who have taken time from their busy schedules to be with me in support today. My first mentor at the assessor's office, Kathy Leonard, and her husband, Tom. No, you're not going to get away that easy, so you've got to stand up, Kathy. My godparents, John and Ruby Patterson. my spiritual leader could not make it today, but he sent his son, Dr. Byron Brazier, and please do not tell him everything about me after this luncheon. Byron. I thank you, the City Club, and other members of the Finance Committee for allowing me to set the chart for the county's finances in the future, and I would be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Obviously, Ms. Poser, first and the foremost, she'll ask the first question, but don't be intimidated.
No, I'm going to ask a very nice question. I'm not going to be mean today.
I know you will, Kathy.
Oh.
I'm behind you, so I was going to say, if you want to ask our speaker, state your name and your question briefly.
Kathy Posner. My question just is, I wondered if you've explored looking at selling the naming rights of the various forest preserve parks and the golf courses, because the county could make a lot of money that way. It's all named after dead people.
Unfortunately, the county could not make a lot of money that way. The county and the Forest Preserve District are separate governmental entities. I will share that with the CFO for the Forest Preserve District, Marlo Kemp, but we do invite any and all ideas, so thank you.
See, I wasn't mean. If no one has a question, I could ask a second one.
I'm sure you could. Well, since most of the people here are either family members or
Yeah.
on our team, right?
Yeah. Okay, the second one. I know it might sound mean-spirited, but I don't understand why Cook County Hospital has to provide health services to people who don't live in Cook County. I don't mind making a sacrifice for my fellow citizens of Cook County, but isn't anyone allowed to go there from anywhere and not have to be a Cook County resident?
When you present yourself in our emergency room system, we have to legally treat you and then send you on about your way. We are exploring, President Schroeder is working with the various neighboring counties to try to provide those services, and they would cost share in that. The hardest ability right now that we have is when registering a patient, sometimes they give you fictitious addresses and false information. But we are working very hard to explore other counties contributing to this regional healthcare system.
Okay, thank you. I could go a third, but
Look while you're ahead. Well, I have a question. Paul Green, yes, okay. So since I have my, by the way, former County Board Commissioner Schuman, you mind standing up? Like Mr. Butler, students of Professor Green, if I can't run government, I'll put my fingers in it one way or another. But my question to you is a serious one. I was at that meeting when Ralph Martiri presented all that economic, from the tax accountability, whatever. That structural deficit is real. That's not going away no matter what anyone says. How do you try and alleviate the structural deficit so that you don't have to do this next year or 2 years from now?
Like I said, we're setting up an expenditure review committee, Mr. Green, who will look at all possibilities with us. We know that now our workforce is 90% unionized, and those contracts will be up in November 30th of this year. For the first time, finance and labor will be working together on those contracts. The cost of doing business is increasing, and I hope that there will become a stabilization of those costs. But again, we look for new initiatives. We're always thinking about how we can better serve the constituents of Cook County. But yes, in fact, that structural deficit is living and breathing, and the sales tax by no means is the answer to that. So we have to look both at other revenues as well as cost containment.